Welcome to App.IoT. This channel is dedicated to showcasing projects and lessons using the App.IoT platform from our team and members from our community. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to get started with App.IoT. We're going to build our own app, configure our App.IoT board, and finally build the circuit to bring it all together. By the end of this video, we would have made our own custom app and paired it to our custom board to control some LEDs and buttons. To do this, we're going to need the following part: a Node MCU running the App.IoT firmware. You can flash your node with the App.IoT firmware. If you're unsure of how to do this, just check our previous video. The link will be in the video description. You'll also need a few LEDs, a few buttons, some 10 ohm resistors, a breadboard, a computer to build the app on, and a phone to use the app on, and a few other basics like a USB cable and some jumper wires. Let's start off by wiring up our circuit. Grab your breadboard and your Node MCU and plug them in together. Next, plug in the LEDs and the buttons into the breadboard as follows. Now, don't forget that LEDs are not bipolar components. This means there's a positive and a negative leg. The positive leg is the longer leg and the shorter leg is the negative one. Buttons, on the other hand, are bipolar, which means it doesn't matter which way you plug them in. I'm going to plug my LEDs here, making sure to take note of which side is the positive side, and I'll plug my buttons in here. You should notice that the pins just slide right into the breadboard. This breadboard allows for us to connect electronics together without having to solder the wires together. The breadboard actually has these internal metal rows which conduct electricity across them. These rows are organized as follows, and these are what allow us to actually plug the wires in together without having to solder anything. Now we're going to use these rows with some jumpers to connect our LEDs to our App.IoT board. Let's use pin 1 and 2 for the first two LEDs, and then we'll use pin 3 and 4 for the two buttons. This is how we're going to wire it up. Connect the G and D pin, which is ground, to the outer row of the breadboard on both sides. Then we connect the short leg of all the LEDs to the closest outer row. Then we connect the long leg of the first LED to pin 1 using a resistor. Then we connect the short leg of LED 2 to pin 2 using a resistor. Then we connect the buttons leg to pin 3 and the other leg on the same side to the outer row. Finally, we connect the second buttons leg to pin 4 and the other leg on the same side to the outer row. Once this is all done, your wiring should look something like this. And just like that, all of our wiring is done. Now we can get started with actually building the app that we're going to use to control it. First things first, head over to appshow.com and either log in if you already have an account or create a new free trial account. These free trials are infinite and do give you full access to the App.IoT builder. Plus, if you do make some cool projects and you post them either on our Twitter or on our Discord, link in the description, our mods will definitely give you either a free upgrade or even possibly some free hardware. Once you're logged in, click on the app builder and then click on the IoT builder in the top menu. We're going to come back to the app builder afterwards, but we need to first arrange our board on the app shed system. Now we can create a new project. Let's just name it LED button control and then we just click save. Now this is the App.IoT builder. On the right hand side we have some components, and on the left hand side we have a generic microcontroller board. The pins on the generic board reflect the pins on our actual App.IoT board. So pin 5 here is equal to pin D5 here. Now in real life we've wired up two LEDs to pin 1 and 2 and two buttons to pin 3 and 4. So we need to do the exact same on the IoT builder. Let's start off with the LEDs. We need to click on the LED icon and then click on the box connected to pin 1. It'll ask us for a name and a variable name. These are both important as they will help us find the pin later on when we're building the app. So I'm going to name mine LED 1 followed by save. We then repeat this process the second time for the second LED, ensuring to name it LED 2. Next, we need to do the buttons. The process is very similar. We just need to click on the button followed by pin 3 and name it button 1. The same is then done for the second button, connecting it to pin 4 and ensuring that we name it button 2. Now that our App.IoT board is all wired up, we can actually begin making our app for it. We need to go back to the app builder by clicking on the app builder link at the top of the menu. This phone here is where all the apps you create will be stored. You can see my account is full of some past projects of mine that I can access and edit whenever I want. But for now, let's just go ahead and click on the red plus icon to create a new app. We should see a new app open. Now the first thing we need to do is give it a name so that we can find the app in the future if we ever want to edit it. We need to go ahead and click on settings and then change the name. You can also change the icon if you want. After this, we just click save. Now, since we want this app to have the ability to control a board, we're going to need to load that board we just made into the app. We do this by clicking on boards and then clicking on the most recent one with the correct name. Now finally we can start building our app. Now AppShed pretty much allows you to build the most insane advanced apps if you know what you're doing. Or it allows you to build some really basic but functioning apps if you're still new to it. In this video we're going to be building a simple functional app, but don't let that stop your imagination from really running wild, because you really can build some awesome stuff once you get into it. So our app's going to need 4 buttons. 2 buttons to turn on LED 1 and LED 2, and 2 buttons to turn off LED 1 and LED 2. We're also going to need 2 input boxes to read the values of button 1 and button 2. But let's do the LEDs first. To do this, we're going to need to add a button, which is done by clicking on the button icon. Then we can give the button a label. In my case, I'll call it LED 1 on. Then we need to assign the button an action that it will perform when it's clicked. So we head over to the Action tab. By default, the button's action sends an email. We can change this by clicking on Change Action. Here you'll see a long list of AppShed actions, but what we're after is the IoT actions at the bottom of the list. Here we should see LED 1 and LED 2 that we named earlier. I'm going to start with LED 1. When we click on this, we should see 3 states that we can set the LED 2 when we push the button. We've got on, toggle, and off. Since I named my button LED 1 on, I'm going to set the state to on and then click Save. Now we need to add the off button in the same way for LED 1. We add the button, name it, change the action, and finally set LED 1 to off. Now we can do the exact same thing for LED 2, ensuring that we're using the LED 2 action when we set it to on and off for the 2 buttons. With our LEDs set up, let's move on to our buttons. Now, buttons aren't like an LED, they aren't outputs, they're actually called inputs. And what we want to do is we want to be able to read the pin that the button's on to see when the button's been clicked. So we're going to be looking at the input of that pin. To do this, we use the input box. An input box is used to display data like the state of a pin or one of the variables from our app. We click on input box and then give it a title like button 1 state. We can then put the variable name that we gave button 1 in the IoT builder here into the name. The variable name we gave it should be button 1. Then we just click save. Now this will show the state of button 1 when we're connected to the IoT board. This same process is then done for button 2, ensuring that the variable that we use is the variable that we set for button 2 in the IoT builder, which was button 2. Once that's all done, our app should look like this. In terms of UI, it's pretty basic, but it's only meant to be functional for now. We can definitely work on making it look nicer later on. Let's now get our app onto our phone so we can actually test it with our board. Now, to get this app onto our phone for actual use, we're going to publish it. And to publish it, we're going to click on the airplane. Once you get the thumbs up, your app is actually ready to share to your mobile device. You can click share and then click QR code. You can then scan this QR code with your phone to load the app onto your phone. Now, once your app is fully loaded onto your phone, you can go ahead and connect to your board's Wi-Fi and give it a try. Now the last thing we're going to do here is just look at how we could make the app look a little bit nicer. So what I've done here is I've opened up Inkscape, my design tool. You could use Photoshop, you could use Paint, and I'm just going to mock up a nicer looking app really quickly. I won't spend too much time, but just to give you an idea of what a nicer looking version could be and how you could do that. Next, I'll take that mock-up and pretty much rebuild an AppShed. So again, linking my board, I'm going to go to my heading and get rid of the header just to make it look a bit more open. I think next here I'll go to the style of the app and change the background color. We're going to be using style, the style section a lot. You'll see here I'll add some text, and what I'll do next is I'll edit the style of the text to make it bold and make it slightly bigger like in my mockup. Now we could use the style tool to create those buttons, but it's easier just to upload the image of the button that we created in Inkscape, which is what I'm doing here. So I'm uploading the on button and I'm uploading the off button. And again, I'll use style on these to make them line up the same way as they do in the mockup with some padding. You'll see there after the padding is applied, it looks just like the mockup. I think the last thing we do is we just pretty much copy and paste everything and use the move tool to get them into position. So copying in the text, then copying the images, and then just moving them into the correct position. Now this next part is really important. What we can do is we can give the image an action the same way we can give a button an action, and when we tap on that image it'll perform the action. So what I'm busy doing now is I'm actually setting the action to each image to turn on and off the relevant LED. And then the last thing we do is we simply add the input box for the button 1 status and the button 2 status, and it's pretty much the exact same way as we did in the previous apps, except we use the style section to get rid of the line after. And from there we've got a really nice looking, really workable app. If we spent more time it could definitely look better, but the point is just to show how you could make it look a bit nicer if you spend some time on it. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to join our Discord or hit us up on Twitter. We've got a whole Q&A channel, a show and tell channel, and even just a general chat to share ideas with other makers and educators. The link to this is in the video description, and again, thanks for watching.